Do you find that you can understand your teacher in a classroom, but you can't understand fast-speaking natives from TV, movies, or YouTube? The best way to fix that is to practice listening to real-world English. And that's what we'll do today in this real-world English listening masterclass. We'll listen to famous people like Barack Obama, Taylor Swift, and Jim Carrey speaking in the real world. And they tell jokes, use idioms and informal speech, and use sarcasm. And your English is excellent if you can understand these clips. As you complete this lesson, you'll improve your listening skills, expand your vocabulary, improve your pronunciation, and practice speaking. Welcome back to Jforrest English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's get started. First, let's listen to President Barack Obama give a formal speech on a serious topic. But at the end, he makes a joke. Here's the first listening exercise. You need to complete the missing words. Let's listen 3 times.
I've ordered every federal agency to eliminate rules that don't make sense. I've ordered every federal agency to eliminate rules that don't make sense. I've ordered every federal agency to eliminate rules that don't make sense.
Did you complete the sentence? He said, I've ordered every federal agency to eliminate rules that don't make sense. Now let's take a look at I've. This is a contraction of I have. So we say it as one word, I've. And it's a very unstressed pronunciation. Repeat after me, I've ordered. So notice this ED here is just a soft D. Ordered. Repeat after me. Ordered. I've ordered every federal agency to eliminate. Now here, a lot of native speakers will pronounce to when it's a preposition or part of the infinitive like it is here as a very unstressed to eliminate. Repeat after me. To eliminate. But Barack Obama does not do that here. He pronounces the full to. So to is the standard pronunciation and ta is the unstressed pronunciation that's commonly used by natives in natural speech, which is why it can be difficult for you to understand us. Now let's look at don't make sense. Because he didn't pronounce those final voiced sounds, specifically the T, don't. Notice he didn't say don't, he just said don't. And then make, you didn't hear that k, it was just make. And that makes the pronunciation smoother, which is why it sounds like we're talking very fast. Now, let's move on and talk about the word eliminate. Grammatically, you use eliminate plus a noun or a gerund because you eliminate something. And this means to completely remove or get rid of. Remember this. It might help you in the future of this lesson, get rid of. So for example, we eliminated plastic bags. This is the something, the noun. If you wanted to use a verb, remember it's the gerund. We eliminated using plastic bags. Or you might say, Jennifer helps me eliminate my mistakes, the noun. Or you could say, these lessons help me eliminate my mistakes. Again, the noun. So do you agree with that? If you do, put that's right in the comments. Are you enjoying this lesson? If you are, then I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers from TV, the movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills of fast English, expand your vocabulary with natural expressions, and learn advanced grammar easily. Plus, you'll have me as your personal coach. You can look in the description for the link to learn more, or you can go to my website and click on Finally Fluent Academy. Now let's continue with our lesson. Now let's continue on with the speech. So you need to complete the missing word. You'll hear it 3 times.
We've already announced over 500 reforms. We've already announced over 500 reforms. We've already announced over 500 reforms.
How'd you do with this one? He said, we've already announced over 500 reforms. So notice another contraction. We've is a contraction of we have. Repeat after me, we've. We've already announced, we have already announced. What's the grammar here? What verb tense is this? It's the present perfect. And it's being used because this is a completed past action. The 500 reforms, that's complete, that's done. But this is an ongoing time reference. So it's possible to announce more reforms. At 500, it can increase and be 505 or 510 in the future because it's ongoing. Now let's talk about the word over. Over 500 reforms. So how many reforms? Well, we know it was more than 500. But we don't know the exact amount because when you say over or more than 500, it might be 501 or it might be 525. We don't know because it's unspecified, but it's more than over 500. Let's keep going. You need to complete the missing words. You'll hear it 3 times.
And just a fraction of them will save business and citizens more than $10 billion over the next 5 years. And just a fraction of them will save business and citizens more than $10 billion over the next 5 years. And just a fraction of them will save business and citizens more than $10 billion over the next 5 years.
Did you complete the sentence? He said, and just a fraction of them will save business and citizens more than $10 billion over the next 5 years. Let's talk about a fraction of them. A fraction of means a small number or a small portion of them. In this case, the reforms. You could say, I know 100 phrasal verbs. That sounds amazing, right? 100 phrasal verbs. But then if you add, but that's just a fraction of them. Them is the phrasal verbs. It represents the phrasal verbs. But if you say a fraction of, it means a small number or a small portion. So even though 100 sounds large, it doesn't sound very large compared to how many phrasal verbs there are. Let's talk about the pronunciation of them, because there's a strong pronunciation, which is them, but there's also a weak and unstressed pronunciation, them. So it's just that vowel sound that sounds more relaxed and unstressed. This is another reason why native speakers can be difficult to understand, because there are these differences in pronunciation, especially in natural spoken English, which Barack Obama, even though he's the president at this time and he's giving a formal speech, he still is a native speaker. So of course he's going to use natural pronunciation patterns. Now let's look at over the next 5 years. The word over represents between now and 5 years from now. So that time frame is over. You could say, I learned a lot of phrasal verbs over the weekend. So that means the entire time reference from start to finish, and that time reference is the weekend. This is very commonly used in daily speech. You could say, we discussed how to improve our speaking skills over coffee. So you can do something over coffee, over dinner. And that means while we were having coffee. So your coffee has a time reference, a time when you started coffee and a time when you ended coffee. And that period of time is over coffee. Let's continue on with the speech. This is a longer section and there are 2 parts to complete. You'll hear it 3 times.
We got rid of one rule from 40 years ago that could have forced some dairy farmers to spend $10,000 a year proving that they could contain a spill. We got rid of one rule from 40 years ago that could have forced some dairy farmers to spend $10,000 a year proving that they could contain a spill. We got rid of one rule from 40 years ago that could have forced some dairy farmers to spend $10,000 a year proving that they could contain a spill.
Did you hear all the missing words? He said we got rid of, remember, I told you to remember that, we got rid of one rule from 40 years ago that could have forced some dairy farmers to spend $10,000 a year proving that they could contain a spill. Got rid of, let's talk about the pronunciation here. We're going to use connected speech where we take individual words and it sounds like one word. So I'm going to say got rid of. So notice at the end, you can take the word of and you can make it an unstressed sound and say duh. So instead of but we're taking that D sound from rid. Got rid of or got rid of. Dove. Dove is the full sound and duh is the unstressed. And remember that to get rid of means eliminate. We already talked about that. Now let's take a look at could have, because we have the auxiliary verb have, but you can also turn this into an unstressed of. And the same rule applies. You can use duh and say coulda, or you can use dove and say could've, because you're taking that D from could. Coulda, could've. What about this sentence? We could have eliminated the rule. This sentence is grammatically incorrect because the correct sentence is we could have eliminated the rule. Remember that these pronunciation changes, changing have to of, only applies to spoken English. It doesn't apply to written English. So you can verbally say coulda, but in writing, it's considered grammatically incorrect. Let's keep going. Here's the next sentence to complete. You'll hear it 3 times.
Because milk was somehow classified as an oil. Because milk was somehow classified as an oil. Because milk was somehow classified as an oil.
Did you get this one? He said because milk was somehow classified as an oil. I found his pronunciation was quite clear. Do you agree with me here? So let's just look at some vocabulary. Let's look at classified as. To be classified as is the full structure you need, and classified means categorized or designated as something. So you could say phrasal verbs are classified as advanced. You need that word as something, as advanced. Now let's review somehow. In this context, it means that the reasoning or the method, it isn't obvious or it's difficult to understand. So how could milk be classified as oil? That's difficult to understand. So that's why they use somehow. You can use this in your daily speech. You can say, she somehow got the promotion. So just by adding that word somehow, you're questioning why or how she got the promotion. So it takes a statement that sounds positive, she got the promotion, and it actually turns it into more of a negative statement by saying she somehow got the promotion. Now it's the fun part. You're going to hear President Barack Obama make a joke. So you need to complete the missing words and you need to understand why this is funny. Let's see if you can do that. You'll hear it 3 times.
With a rule like that, I guess it was worth crying over spilled milk. With a rule like that, I guess it was worth crying over spilled milk. With a rule like that, I guess it was worth crying over spilled milk.
So, did you complete the missing words? Did you hear the joke? Did you understand the joke? If you did, your English is excellent. He said, with a rule like that, I guess it was worth crying over spilled milk. Before we talk about why this is funny, let's review some pronunciation points. So first, let's take a look at rule. Notice here there are two sounds. We have rule, so that dark L, rule, rule. So if I pronounce this fully, you hear those two sounds, rule. In a more unstressed pronunciation, it won't be as obvious, rule, ool. It's there, but it's very quick, rule, rule. But it is best to make sure you have those two sounds. Now let's take a look at spilled, because there's a difference between British and American English. In American English, we only use the word spilled, spilled. In British English, there's an alternative word that's spelled differently because it's spelled with a T and it's pronounced that way. So it's just the end. In American English, it's always spilled, a soft D, but in British English, it's spilt, spilt. So you might hear spilled, you might hear spilt, but those final sounds aren't pronounced fully in spoken English in both British and American English. Just like in here, you didn't hear the end sound for the word that. It was more of a that. So you just don't press out that final T, that. And milk sounded like milk. So did you hear that the final K sound, that K, was not pronounced? It was just a milk, milk. So you put your tongue in the position of a K, milk, but you just don't push out that sound. Milk, milk. All right, now let's talk about the joke. The style of this joke is called a pun or a play on words. So it's a humorous use of one word or one phrase that has several meanings or that sounds like another word. In this case, you need to know that there's a proverb in English and perhaps in your culture as well. The proverb is, don't cry over spilled milk. If you don't know what this proverb is, the joke probably wouldn't make sense to you. So this proverb, don't cry over spilled milk, means don't get upset over minor issues or minor mistakes, like spilling a glass of milk. It's not worth getting upset over. So you might say, I made a grammar mistake when I was presenting the report, but you're very upset over this. And your friend, your colleague could say, don't cry over spilled milk. It's a grammar mistake. But notice here, Obama said it was worth crying over spilled milk. So Obama is saying that the farmers should be upset over paying $10,000 a year on something silly like proving they can contain a milk spill. Because remember, milk was somehow classified as an oil. So now you understand the joke. Now let's look at was worth crying, because grammatically you need to be worth plus gerund, your verb and ing. You could say it was worth watching this class, and hopefully you agree with that. Now grammatically, you could also say something to be worth something. For example, this class was worth it. The it represents something. What is the something? Well, this class was worth watching. So the watching is the it. So now you can impress your friends because you understand that joke. Let's move on and listen to actor and comedian Jim Carrey, who uses a lot of sarcasm to get the audience laughing. We'll listen 2 times now that your listening skills are better, and you'll complete the missing words. Here's your first listening exercise.
Please welcome 2-time Golden Globe winner, Jim Carrey. Please welcome 2-time Golden Globe winner, Jim Carrey.
How did you do? The announcer said, please welcome 2-time Golden Globe winner, Jim Carrey. Did you hear two time, or did you write down or say two times with an S? Grammatically, you need two time because this is an adjective, and adjectives don't have plural forms. Nouns have singular and plural forms. Of course, you could say, I watched this lesson two times with the S because it's the noun. And I certainly hope you do watch this lesson two times because you will learn a lot the second time as well. So put that's right, put that's right in the comments if you're going to watch it two times. Now let's discuss please welcome. This is of course a polite way to welcome someone. You could also say let's welcome. This is casual and natural, and you can also use this to welcome someone. For example, everyone, please welcome Maria to the team. Or everyone, let's welcome Maria to the team. The second one sounds more casual. Also notice that these examples are in the imperative form. They start with the base verb, and this is used for orders, instructions, or requests. So you can think of this as a request. So I could say to you, perhaps as an instruction, download the base verb, so it's the imperative, download the free lesson PDF. The link is in the description, so please do this. Now let's review your next listening exercise. You need to complete this sentence.
Thank you. I am two-time Golden Globe winner Jim Carrey. You know, when I go to sleep at night, thank you. I am two-time Golden Globe winner Jim Carrey. You know, when I go to sleep at night,
how did you do? He said, thank you. I am two-time Golden Globe winner Jim Carrey. And when I go to sleep at night. Now notice how he said, and when I. Was that difficult for you to hear? Those sounds really blend together. And just becomes And when just becomes an unstressed when. So you just don't open your mouth as much. When. And then you combine them together. And when I. So that and is almost dropped. And when I. Now let's talk about go to sleep. He pronounced this quite clearly, but a native speaker might say goda, because that T between two vowels becomes a soft D. Goda, go to sleep. Now let's talk about the sentence structure. Notice we have when plus subject plus present simple. This is used with a future action. I see many mistakes with this. When I improve, not the future simple, the present simple. When I improve my listening skills, so how would you complete this sentence? What verb do you need? You need the future simple to complete the sentence. For example, when I improve my listening skills, I'll watch, I will. A native speaker will say all, a very unstressed, I'll watch your lessons without subtitles. Notice the expression go to sleep. You can also say go to bed. Both are very commonly used. Go to sleep, go to bed. But don't say go to my sleep or my bed or the sleep, the bed. You don't need a possessive or an article. And notice those different prepositions. In the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening. But what happens with night? At night. So let's continue this clip. And when I go to sleep at night, what does he say next? Let's find out.
You know, when I go to sleep at night, I'm not just a guy going to sleep. I'm two-time Golden Globe winner Jim Carrey going to get some well-needed shut-eye. You know, when I go to sleep at night, I'm not just a guy going to sleep. I'm two-time Golden Globe winner Jim Carrey going to get some well-needed shut-eye.
Did you get those missing words? Going to get some well-needed shut-eye. Shut-eye. Did you get that? What is shut-eye? Well, maybe you understand just based on the context that it's sleep. Now, in this case, shut-eye and sleep are both nouns. You can say, let's get some shut-eye. Let's get some sleep. So that's another way of suggesting, let's go to sleep. Let's get some sleep. But remember, sleep is of course used as a verb. I hope you sleep well. But shut-eye is only a noun. Now, using our imperative, maybe you have a newborn baby and you say, please, please sleep tonight. I desperately need some shut-eye. Now, well-needed, notice he added well-needed shut-eye. This is an adjective. It means very much needed. You could also say well-deserved, which means very much deserved. For example, after working for 10 hours, I took a well-deserved break. I deserved this break very much. So it's an adjective that modifies the noun. Now, let me ask you, have you noticed that the audience is laughing a lot, but Jim Carrey isn't telling jokes? So why is the audience laughing? Do you know? The audience is laughing because Jim Carrey is mocking his importance and success. Do you know what the verb to mock means? Other synonyms are to tease, to make fun of, to poke fun at. But this can be done in a light-hearted way, like Jim Carrey is doing. Jim Carrey is mocking his importance and success in a light-hearted way. But what if you say, my coworkers mock my accent nonstop? So mock is your verb. You need to conjugate it. Now, this can also be in a mean-spirited way. So lighthearted is positive, and then the opposite is mean-spirited, which is negative. Now remember, the audience is filled with celebrities, so he's also mocking their importance and success. So he's saying he goes to sleep just like everyone else despite having 2 Golden Globes. That's why everyone is laughing. Now let's continue on. Here's your next listening exercise.
And when I dream, I don't just dream any old dream. And when I dream, I don't just dream any old dream.
Did you get those missing words? I don't just dream any old dream. Did you hear how old dream sounded? You definitely don't want to say old. You want to say ol. So drop that D, ol, but then attach it to the noun, old dream, old dream. Now you combine this with any because that's the expression, any ol. So you can use that Y to transition to the next word, which is a vowel, ol. Any ol, any ol, any old dream, any old dream. Now this is an expression, any old plus noun, pronounced as any ol, means random or unimportant. So we commonly use this in the negative. You can't just buy any old dress. You can't just buy some random dress, some unimportant dress. You can't just buy any old dress. This is your wedding. You need a spectacular dress. Let's keep going. Here's your next listening exercise.
I dream about being 3-time Golden Globe winning actor Jim Carrey. I dream about being 3-time Golden Globe winning actor Jim Carrey.
Did you get all the missing words? I dream about being 3-time Golden Globe winning actor Jim Carrey. And of course, notice that 3-time, you already heard that. So let's talk about to dream about. Notice that you can have a gerund or a noun. So it's very common to ask, what did you dream about last night? What did you dream about last night? Now to answer this, you can use a clause, which is subject, verb, object, and you can add that before the clause, which is optional. So it's not required. You could say, I dreamed, because dream is a verb, so you conjugate it. I dreamed that, optional, now our clause. I dreamed that I was Jim Carrey. It was so weird. Now notice that to dream of, a different preposition, of, plus gerund or noun. This is used differently. It's used to talk about your desires, your aspirations, or goals. For example, I dream of, gerund, I dream of speaking English fluently and confidently. But if you say, I dream about speaking in English with natives, this means you have this vision while asleep. Now again, did you notice that the audience was laughing a lot? Well, the audience is laughing because still, Jim Carrey is mocking his desire, but then therefore the audience's desire for even more success and importance. Everyone in the audience wants to win that Golden Globe. They desperately hope their name will be called. And he's downplaying the importance of it. Do you know what to downplay means? This means to make something seem less important or significant than it actually is. But often we use this as advice to not do this, because people downplay their success. For example, your friend might say, or a family member might say, I got a promotion, but it's no big deal. It's no big deal. They're downplaying their promotion. So you can say, don't downplay your success, which is the imperative and the negative. Don't downplay your success. You earned that promotion. Let's keep going. Here's your listening exercise.
Because then I would be enough. It would finally be true. And I could stop this terrible search. And I could stop this terrible search.
Did you get all the missing words? And I could stop this terrible search. Oh, Jim Carrey, he's the best. So again, he's clearly mocking the importance of winning a Golden Globe. And also remember that everyone in the audience wants to win, maybe desperately wants to win. So they're laughing at themselves because they identify with what he's saying. Now, he's saying, I would be enough if I won 3 Golden Globes. Because remember, he dreams about becoming 3-time Golden Globe winner. This is your second conditional, which is used for hypothetical or unreal situations. So we have if plus past simple, and then would plus base verb. If I improved my English, I would travel more. But at this point, is hypothetical and unreal. If I won a 3rd Golden Globe, I would stop this terrible search. Now, this is almost an incomplete sentence because it doesn't tell you what he's searching for, but it's implied. Everyone in the audience knows, I know what he's searching for. Do you know? Do you know what Jim Carrey is searching for? Well, he's searching for meaning, for importance, and he'll finally get that sense of importance if he wins a 3rd Golden Globe. So this is again why it's funny. He's mocking this desire for more, for more, for more. Now notice you can use could in conditionals to express possibility. He could also say, I could stop searching. Stop searching, because after stop, you want your gerund verb to mean that you no longer do the action. So for you, maybe you say, I stopped using subtitles because I now understand fast English. That's amazing. Let's keep going the next listening exercise.
For what I know ultimately won't fulfill me. For what I know ultimately won't fulfill me.
Did you hear everything he said? For what I know ultimately won't fulfill me. Now notice how a native could pronounce for what I know, combining those sounds together. For what I know, for what I know. So for becomes an unstressed fur. We don't pronounce that D on what, so it sounds like a soft D, but then you add that D to the next sound, which is I, the subject I, but it's the same pronunciation as I. So you add that D before I, for would I, die. And then no is the same pronunciation as the word no, the opposite of yes, for what I know, for what I know. Now, fulfill, we'll talk about the meaning of this. Native speakers often drop that first L, I do, and say fulfill, So instead of saying full, ol, with that dark L, we commonly say fulfill. It's a lot easier to say, isn't it? And that's what I personally say. So to fulfill, this means to satisfy or to make someone happy. Now there are many different sentence structures. You can say, my job fulfills me. So this is the active form of the verb. The verb is fulfill, so you conjugate it. In this case, my job. My job fulfills me. You could change the subject, her job fulfills her. Or you can say, I feel fulfilled with that ed, it's the adjective form, by my job. I'm fulfilled by my job. Or you can say, I find being a teacher very fulfilling. So you can find something or find doing something fulfilling. So basically, Jim Carrey is saying, at the Golden Globe Awards, in front of all these people who desperately want to win, I know winning another Golden Globe, his third Golden Globe, won't fulfill me. It won't satisfy me. It won't make me happy. Now let's hear Jim Carrey's final words of wisdom. You need to complete the missing words. Let's listen now.
But these are important, these awards. But these are important, these awards.
Did you get his final words of wisdom? But these are important, these awards. For pronunciation, but just has that flat T. But. So you just don't push out that sound for the T. And then you need to connect it with the other words. But these are. So you can take R and make it an unstressed That's what native speakers commonly do. But these are important. But again, it connects to the next word as well. But these are important, these awards. Now, grammatically, why would he say, but these are important, these awards? He's doing this to remind you what the subject is. The subject being these awards. Of course, grammatically, the standard is to say, but these awards are important. But notice he said, these are important. But then he's just reminding you what these are. So this is often done as an afterthought. For example, I could say, this is due today, the final report. And then I might realize, oh, well, maybe you don't know what this is, or I just want to clarify. I want to be very direct and clear. So this is due today, the final report. So I'm just adding the subject on at the end. Remember that but or however, they have the same meaning. However is slightly more formal, but is everyday. But however introduces a contrast, meaning there has to be some opposite idea. Maybe something is positive and negative, good or bad, right or wrong. There has to be some sort of contrast. So the contrast here is he's mocking winning an award. His entire beginning part of the speech is mocking winning an award. So we can consider that to be a negative. So now to successfully use but, you have to have a contrasting idea. So you have to have something positive. So to form that contrast and use but successfully, he says, these awards are important.
Please welcome two-time Golden Globe winner, Jim Carrey.
Thank you. I am two-time Golden Globe winner, Jim Carrey. You know, when I go to sleep at night, I'm not just a guy going to sleep. I'm two-time Golden Globe winner Jim Carrey going to get some well-needed shut-eye. And when I dream, I don't just dream any old dream. I dream about being three-time Golden Globe winning actor Jim Carrey. Because then I would be enough. It would finally be true. And I could stop this terrible search for what I know ultimately won't fulfill me. But these are important, these awards.
Now let's listen to Taylor Swift's commencement speech at NYU. And she uses a lot of formal and informal speech. Here's the sentence. You'll hear it 3 times.
No matter how hard you try to avoid being cringe, you will look back on your life and cringe retrospectively. No matter how hard you try to avoid being cringe, you will look back on your life and cringe retrospectively. No matter how hard you try to avoid being cringe, you will look back on your life and cringe retrospectively.
How'd you do? She said, no matter how hard you try to avoid being cringe, you will look back on your life and cringe retrospectively. Let's talk about the grammar, because notice avoid, then you have a gerund verb. Avoid being cringe. And of course, to avoid is to stay away from someone or something because it makes you uncomfortable, perhaps. You could say, I've been avoiding. Notice that present perfect continuous is started in the past and continues until now. I've been avoiding speaking English in public because I'm worried about being cringe. Also notice here, you worry about something, a noun, or doing something, speaking in public, the gerund verb, because about is a preposition. You could say, I'm worried about the exam, or a gerund verb, I'm worried about failing the exam. Now let's talk about that word we've used a lot, cringe. This is colloquial, but very commonly used, and it means to behave in a way that causes embarrassment, awkwardness, or discomfort, either to yourself or others.
Oh my god, it was so cringe, wasn't it?
Okay, that is so cringe. That is so cringe. You just don't do that.
So it makes sense you would want to avoid being cringe. Let's look at to look back on your life. If you look back on something, it means you reflect on it. And in this case, your life. Now let's talk about this and cringe. Do you notice something different perhaps? It's the same word, but in this case, it's a verb. So the verb is to cringe. And this is to feel a strong emotional reaction of embarrassment or awkwardness. And we generally show this physically or visibly. What I just did, that is cringe. I just cringed. Here's a real example for you. I cringe when I look back on, when I reflect on my very first YouTube video, which as you can see is maybe a little cringe. So she uses colloquial language and advanced vocabulary retrospectively in the same sentence. So if you do something retrospectively, it means you think about past events. You could say retrospectively, thinking about past events, I wish I had started speaking English much sooner. Another way to say this is in hindsight or looking back. You could also say looking back on it being the situation in the past. So now you have colloquial and advanced vocabulary. Our next listening exercise, you need to complete the sentence with the missing words. You'll hear it 3 times.
Cringe is unavoidable over a lifetime. Even the term cringe might someday be deemed cringe. Cringe is unavoidable over a lifetime. Even the term cringe might someday be deemed cringe. Cringe is unavoidable over a lifetime. Even the term cringe might someday be deemed cringe.
How'd you do? She said cringe is unavoidable over a lifetime. Even the term cringe might someday be deemed cringe. You've certainly heard the word cringe a lot. So let's look at to be deemed something. This is the same as to be regarded as or judged as. So notice all 3 of these use the verb to be. For example, colloquial language is deemed slang by some, maybe you, but natives use it in daily speech in all situations, which is why it's important to learn the most common colloquial language. Now remember, you can use regarded or judged, but you need that preposition as. Colloquial language is regarded as, judged as, slang by some, and the rest is exactly the same. Now notice she used that modal verb, might be deemed. You need your modal plus base verb, which is why we have be, might be deemed. If something might happen, it's saying that it's not certain. There's some doubt. You could say, I might fail, base verb. I might fail my listening exam. That's why these exercises are so important. Our next listening exercise, complete the sentence with the missing words.
You can't avoid it, so don't try to. You can't avoid it, so don't try to. You can't avoid it, so don't try to.
How'd you do? She said, you can't avoid it, so don't try to. Now, what does the it represent in this sentence? The it represents being cringe, because remember, you need that verb in ing. You can use avoid plus noun. You can't avoid the exam, or you use that gerund verb. You talk about the action. You can't avoid taking the exam. I would summarize Taylor's advice to you as embrace being cringe, embrace it. What do you think? Do you agree with that? Put let's go, put let's go in the comments. Now let's move on and listen to Donald Trump respond to a very interesting audience question during the previous presidential debate. And that audience question was, what's one thing you admire about Hillary Clinton? Here are the sentences. You need to complete the missing words. You'll hear it 3 times.
I will say this about Hillary. She doesn't quit. She doesn't give up. I respect that. I tell it like it is. I will say this about Hillary. She doesn't quit. She doesn't give up. I respect that. I tell it like it is. I will say this about Hillary. She doesn't quit. She doesn't give up. I respect that. I tell it like it is.
How did you do? He said, I will say this about Hillary. She doesn't quit. She doesn't give up. I respect that. I tell it like it is. Notice he said, I will. Native speakers will commonly form a contraction and say all. Notice how unstressed that is. All. I'll say this about Hillary. I'll say this. I'll do this. I'll do that. I'll help you. Now this expression, I'll say this about Hillary, this is used to introduce a statement or opinion. Another way of saying this is, here's what I have to say about Hillary. You could say, I'll say this about learning English with native speakers, and then you introduce your opinion. It's a very effective method. Do you think so? If you do, put that's right in the comments. Now let's talk about she doesn't quit, she doesn't give up. So notice here, he used the contracted form, does not, doesn't. Repeat after me, doesn't, doesn't. Now let's talk about quit and give up, because they can be interchangeable, but they can also have different meanings. It depends on context. Quit means to leave a position, such as your job, or to stop something permanently, such as learning English. So in terms of a position, you may know that Joe Biden quit the presidential race. He left it permanently. Now, if you've had enough of your boss and working overtime without pay, you can say, I quit. You're permanently leaving that position. Now, give up means that you surrender, you lose hope. So you stop doing something, you quit because you surrender or lose hope. So you could say, I've been trying to improve my listening skills for years. I give up. So in this case, it means you're no longer going to try. You've just lost all hope that is possible for you. You could also say, I've been trying to improve my listening skills for years. Maybe I should just quit. You could continue on and specify the something. I should just quit learning English. But if it's implied and obvious, you don't need to say it. Your friend could respond back, or I would respond back and say, don't quit, don't give up. So here, although different vocabulary, it means the same thing. Keep going. Don't quit, don't give up. You just need to subscribe to Jforrest English. So make sure you subscribe. Now let's talk about I respect that. What does that represent here? I respect Hillary's determination, her persistence. Those are the adjectives we can use to describe someone who doesn't quit, who doesn't give up. Those are the nouns we can use to describe the fact that she doesn't quit, she doesn't give up. Hillary's determination, she is determined. Hillary's persistence, she is persistent. You could say she keeps going despite setbacks. Or you could say she keeps going despite facing challenges, because you can use despite with a noun or a gerund. And setbacks and challenges, they represent the same thing. Now let's talk about I tell it like it is. This is a colloquial way of saying I'm being straightforward. I'm being honest, I'm being direct. This is often used before offering an area of improvement in a direct, perhaps harsh way. So I could say to you, your accent needs improving. I'm sorry, but I tell it like it is. I'm being 100% honest, direct, even if it might hurt your feelings. There's another word to describe this, which is to be blunt. So when you're blunt, it means you're very honest, even if it might offend someone or hurt someone's feelings. To be blunt, your accent needs improving. So you can use to be blunt at the very beginning, and then you offer critical feedback. So let's summarize Trump's advice. Don't quit, don't give up. What do you think about that? If you agree, if you're not going to quit or give up, then put let's go in the comments. Now let's move on and listen to Oprah Winfrey's commencement speech at Harvard. Here's the sentence. You need to complete the missing words. You'll hear it 3 times.
There is no such thing as failure. Failure is just life trying to move us in another direction. There is no such thing as failure. Failure is just life trying to move us in another direction. There is no such thing as failure. Failure is just life trying to move us in another direction.
Did you get this one? She said there is no such thing as failure. Failure is just life trying to move us in another direction. We can form a contraction between there is and say theirs. Repeat after me, theirs, theirs. There's no such thing as. This means something doesn't exist or something isn't real. So said another way, failure doesn't exist. Using that contraction, does not. Failure doesn't exist. Failure isn't, is not. Failure isn't real. There's no such thing as perfect English. This is something I commonly say to my students. Said another way, perfect English doesn't exist. So don't worry about making mistakes. Native speakers make them too. Next, failure is just life trying to move us in another direction. So notice here, failure is, you could form a contraction, especially in spoken English, and say failures. Failures just life. Now, native speakers commonly link our sounds together. So you could see this with move us in. It may sound like one word, move us in, move us in. Repeat after me, move us in. Now, move us in another direction. There's a very common expression to go in another direction. And this means to change your approach or plan. For example, I was going to enroll in a language school, but I went in another direction. I changed my plan, I changed my approach. And I subscribed to Jforrest English. So let's summarize Oprah's advice. Failure doesn't exist. Do you agree with that? If you do, put that's right, put that's right in the comments. Now let's listen to native speakers from YouTube so you can listen to a variety of accents. Are you ready for the first clip? Remember, you need to fill in the missing words.
It's worth mentioning we're going to have to be pretty frank about the human body and some of the more icky parts when studying outbreaks. It's worth mentioning we're going to have to be pretty frank about the human body and some of the more icky parts when studying outbreaks.
How'd you do with this one? She said it's worth mentioning we're going to have to be pretty frank about the human body and some of the more icky parts when studying outbreaks. Did you get that? Let's review the pronunciation. So notice were. Native speakers like using contractions and we pronounce them in an unstressed way. Were. This is, of course, we are. Now she said going to, but as you may know, native speakers commonly reduce going to as gonna, but this is in spoken English only. Now, native speakers also combine sounds together. So here we have some of the. Instead of saying of, you can just do an unstressed some of the. So it sounds like one word. Repeat after me, some of the. Let's talk about some grammar and vocabulary. Notice one of your missing words was mentioning, and that's because to be worth plus gerund verb. So I wanted to remind you, or perhaps help you learn, that you need the gerund with this expression. So worth is a gerund verb. To be worth doing something. For example, it's worth to be. It is, as a contraction, it's worth subscribing to Jforrest English. Now, if a friend asks you, should I subscribe to Jforrest English? You can say, yes, it's worth it. It's worth it. What's the it? It's worth subscribing. So it represents the gerund. It's worth subscribing. And if you want to sound like a native, you can add totally. It's totally worth it. It's totally worth it. Do you agree with that? If you do, put that's right, put that's right in the comments. And don't worry about taking notes because I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. Let's talk about to be frank. This means to speak honestly, directly, or openly often about something uncomfortable. We often use this to start a sentence. To be frank, I thought you were rude to your mother. So that might be something that's uncomfortable to tell someone. And she used pretty to be pretty frank. This is simply an intensifier. Now, did you hear the word icky? Icky? This is an informal way of something as unpleasant, gross, or distasteful. Cleaning the bathroom, ugh, it's so icky. Wouldn't you agree? Or you could say, you have some icky stuff on your shirt, some gross stuff. Are you ready for your next listening exercise? Remember, you need to complete the missing words. You'll hear it twice.
I've level with you. Before we started making this movie, I'd never been on a pair of skis in my life. I've level with you. Before we started making this movie, I'd never been on a pair of skis in my life.
Could you complete the missing words? I've got to level with you. Before we started making this movie, I'd never been on a pair of skis in my life. Just like going to becomes gonna, got to becomes gotta in spoken English. And again, those contractions which are difficult to hear, I had, a very soft D, I'd. Now, instead of saying of, you can reduce that to just simply but then combine them together. Paraskis. Now let's talk about those missing words. To level with someone. This means to share a surprising or harsh truth. A harsh truth is an uncomfortable truth. So you can say, I have to level with you. I don't like ice cream. Now, Americans commonly say, I gotta level with you. I gotta level with you. I have to level with you. I gotta level with you. They're the same thing. And the fact that I don't like ice cream could be a surprising truth. I gotta level with you. Or you can say, I have to level with you. I gotta level with you. Your performance has been slipping, going down, slipping. So this is a harsh truth. It's honest and direct. Because of that, you can also use that expression we learned, to be frank. I have to be frank with you. Your performance has been slipping. Here's your next listening exercise. You'll hear it twice.
I think a lot of people will reflect on their previous year and think, you know what is the one thing I want to work on? I think a lot of people will reflect on their previous year and think, you know what is the one thing I want to work on?
How'd you do with this one? Was it easy or difficult for you? I think a lot of people will reflect on their previous year and think, you know what? What is the one thing I want to work on? Let's talk about those pronunciation changes. A lot of becomes a lotta. Now, reflect on, because you have that T sound, you can transfer it to the next sound and say reflect on. So it sounds like one word. You can do this with work on. So it sounds like one word. You know what may have been difficult to hear because it becomes unstressed. Yeah, you know what? And want to becomes wanna. Now I wanted you to pay attention to reflect on and work on so you notice those prepositions. When you're learning vocabulary, you should also learn the preposition that completes the verb, because if you get the preposition wrong, it won't sound correct. So to reflect on something, this means to think deeply or carefully about something, usually before making decisions. For example, after the meeting, I reflected on the feedback my boss gave me. Maybe he had to level with you. Maybe he had to give you some frank feedback, honest and direct. And you reflected on that, which is a mature thing to do. Let's talk about, you know what? This is an interjection. So it's used to introduce a thought, or it's simply to create a pause in a conversation. So you can say, we should host a party for your sister's birthday, but that might sound very abrupt. So if you want to transition or create a pause, introduce an idea, you can use an interjection. You know what? We should host a party for your sister's birthday. So by saying, you know what, you get someone's attention and then they're ready to hear your idea. Get ready for the next listening exercise. You'll hear it twice.
Watch this video and get the scoop on a little-known storytelling technique that'll crank up the believability of your message. Watch this video and get the scoop on a little-known storytelling technique that'll crank up the believability of your message.
Was this more difficult for you? Watch this video and get the scoop on a little-known storytelling technique that'll crank up the believability of your message. Instead of saying scoop on a with pauses, you can pronounce this as one word. Scoop on a, scoop on a, scoop on a, scoop on a. Little may have been difficult to hear because that's not how native speakers say it. We say little, little. That'll is a contraction of that will, that'll. Let's review the vocabulary. The scoop, do you know this one? This means insider information or the latest secret or exclusive details. Can you get the scoop on who's getting the promotion? So I'm asking you to get the exclusive information or the latest secret details. Or I could ask what's the scoop on the promotion? Do you know the latest details? Or I could say, who knows the scoop on the promotion? So who has the secret or latest details? What if I said to you, ooh, it's cold in here. Crank up the heat. What would you do to the heat? Or how about, I love this song. Crank it up, crank it up. What would you do? To crank up means to increase the intensity, volume, or level of something. Now in this case, the something was the believability, which is a noun. And this is the quality or state of being believable, which is the adjective. So to be believable. I could say to my friend, you didn't win the lottery? You were so believable. I believed my friend because she's believable. Or I could say, to be frank, the story lacked believability. So it lacked the quality of being believable. Or I could say, I have to level with you. I gotta level with you. The story lacked believability. So look for ways you can mix and match all the vocabulary that you're learning. One more listening exercise, you'll hear it twice.
All right, we've been planning for months. Let's do it. It's go time. All right, we've been planning for months. Let's do it. It's go time.
Did you get that first word? All right. We've been planning for months. Let's do it. It's go time. Now you may not have heard that first word again because of reducing sounds. So instead of saying all right, native speakers commonly say all right, all right, all right. So it can be very unstressed or a little bit unstressed. It depends on the speaker. This one was quite unstressed. We've is of course we have. For sounds like fur, very unstressed. And do it, to get rid of that pause, you can add a very soft w. Do it, do it, do it. But when you say it as one word, you don't hear it. Do it, do it. Do it. All right is used as both an interjection or confirmation. So if someone says, let's meet at 2 to discuss the project, you can say, all right, to confirm. Or you can start the discussion by saying, all right, let's review the sales reports. So in this case, it's an interjection. It gets attention and it signals readiness to start. Let's look at let's do it. I say this a lot, so maybe you've heard it from me. This is an informal way to signal readiness to act. I could say, today you'll learn 20 phrasal verbs. Are you ready? And you can reply back and say, let's do it, Jennifer. Or your friend could ask you, should we sign up for that cooking class? And you say, let's do it, let's do it. Let's look at it's go time. I love this one. This is an informal way to say, now is the time to act. This is the moment we've been waiting for. And it's commonly used with a lot of energy and excitement. So you can imagine before a sports game or a big presentation, someone says, it's go time. Do you want me to make another lesson where we review real clips from native speakers? If you do, put let's go, which is another way of saying it's go time. Let's go, it's go time. Put let's go in the comments. And of course, make sure you like this lesson, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can click here to download it or look for the link in the description. And let's see how well you can complete this lesson.